In the early 1940s, Hollywood was on the brink of a transformation. The golden age of cinema was in full swing, producing stars whose faces and voices would become instantly recognizable to audiences around the world. Among them, Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre were already making waves, though in very different ways. Bogart had emerged from years of steady work in supporting roles, gradually shaping himself into quintessential hard-boiled leading man. Lorre, a Hungarian émigré, was carving out a reputation as the quintessential eccentric character actor, known for his intense, almost unsettling performances that often left audiences either intrigued or uneasy. Their first collaboration came with the 1941 film The Maltese Falcon, directed by the rising star John Huston. The film would become a defining moment for both men, but their personal interactions on set were anything but harmonious. Bogart played Sam Spade, a private detective whose charm, wit, and moral ambiguity made him the template for generations of cinematic anti-heroes. Lorre portrayed Joel Cairo, a sly, nervous, and slightly flamboyant figure whose motives were as unpredictable as his behavior. On screen, their contrasting styles created a magnetic tension that audiences couldn't get enough of. Bogart's understated, cool, precise delivery was a perfect foil to Lorre's erratic and almost theatrical unpredictability. Together, they created a dynamic that still feels electric today. Yet behind the camera, the story was very different. According to multiple crew accounts, Bogart found Lorre irritating. Lorre's tendency to improvise lines, play with physical mannerisms, or linger in character between takes clashed with Bogart's methodical approach. Bogart, who valued professionalism, punctuality, and consistency, reportedly referred to Lorre's eccentricities as distracting and even infuriating at times. Meanwhile, Lorre may have viewed Bogart as rigid, overbearing, or lacking imagination, resenting his co-star's authority and influence on the set. These subtle but persistent frictions created a tense atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the seamless chemistry audiences witnessed on screen. Despite this tension, The Maltese Falcon was a critical and commercial triumph. Critics praised the film's tight script, darkly compelling atmosphere, and most importantly, the performances of its stars. Bogart's star power skyrocketed overnight, solidifying him as Hollywood's definitive leading man, while Lorre's reputation as a uniquely compelling character actor was further cemented. Ironically, the very traits that made them difficult to work with, Bogart's precision, Lorre's eccentricity, were also the traits that produced some of the most memorable moments in the film. The film's success led to future collaborations, including Casablanca, 1942, and The Mask of Demetrius, 1944, each building on the tension and dynamic first established in The Maltese Falcon. While Hollywood saw a duo destined for legendary status, insiders whispered about the undercurrent of friction that might have been just as significant as their on-screen chemistry. Over time, this tension would evolve, influenced not only by their personalities and acting styles, but also by personal struggles, lifestyle differences, and the pressures of stardom. It's fascinating and somewhat ironic to think that two actors who may have privately disliked each other could create cinematic magic that endures more than 80 years later. Their story is a reminder that Hollywood brilliance often comes with hidden complexities, rivalries, clashes of temperament, and unspoken resentments that, paradoxically, can elevate the art itself. And as we'll see, this was just the beginning of a relationship that will continue to intrigue, perplex, and captivate those who look beyond the silver screen. By the time filming began on Casablanca in 1942, Bogart and Lorre were seasoned collaborators. On screen, the tension between their characters created some of the film's most memorable moments. Bogart's Rick Blaine exuded cool detachment, while Lorre's minor but pivotal character brought subtle unease and unpredictability to key scenes. To audiences, it seemed effortless, but on set, every take carried a layer of friction that no script could capture. Bogart, ever meticulous, demanded precision. He studied each scene carefully, timing his lines to match the rhythm of the moment, ensuring his pauses and reactions conveyed exactly what he intended. Lorre, by contrast, thrived on spontaneity. He would experiment with tone, posture, and facial expressions in ways that could unsettle even the most patient co-star. Crew members recalled that Laurie sometimes rewrote small portions of his dialogue on the spot or delivered lines with unpredictable inflection, forcing Bogart to adapt mid-scene. The clash was amplified by personality differences. Bogart was known for his quiet intensity, focused, serious, and sometimes intimidating. Laurie was whimsical, expressive, and easily excitable. What Bogart considered sloppy or offbeat, Laurie may have viewed as creative freedom. Tensions could flare over seemingly minor issues. The angle of a chair in a scene, a pause that lingered too long, or a gesture Laurie exaggerated for effect. While they never physically confronted each other, their verbal sparring and subtle eye rolls reportedly became an unspoken language on set, a silent battle woven into the fabric of the production. Interestingly, some historians argue that these off-screen tensions enhanced the on-screen results. Bogart's controlled, cool demeanor made Laurie's eccentricities stand out even more, heightening the sense of unpredictability in their interactions. Audiences might have sensed the subtle friction, interpreting it as genuine unease or moral ambiguity, which perfectly suited the tone of the films they made together. In a strange way, their personal conflict became a tool for storytelling, lending authenticity to every scene they shared. Yet the friction wasn't just professional. It mirrored deeper contrasts in temperament and worldview. Bogart prized order, discipline, and subtlety. Laurie thrived in chaos, improvisation, and theatricality. Each time their approaches collided, it created a moment of tension that could either disrupt a scene or, if channeled correctly, elevate it to brilliance. This delicate balance between collaboration and conflict would define every subsequent project they shared, leaving a legacy both on-screen and behind the camera. Actors are not just characters they play. They bring their entire lives, histories, and emotional baggage onto the set. For Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre, this could not have been more true. By the early 1940s, both men carried private struggles that subtly influenced their collaboration, often magnifying the tension between them. Bogart's personal life was turbulent and public. His marriage to Mayo Method, nicknamed the Battling Bogarts, was marked by frequent, highly visible conflicts. Method was known for her sharp tongue and volatile temper, and their fights were legendary in Hollywood circles. While these conflicts were primarily off-camera, they left Bogart emotionally drained. Those who worked with him noted that during periods of personal turmoil, his patience could wear thin, and his tolerance for unpredictability, or what he perceived as foolishness, diminished. On a set like Casablanca, where precision and timing were critical, this could create subtle friction, especially with a co-star like Laurie. Peter Lorre, on the other hand, carried the weight of exile and personal trauma. A Hungarian Jew who fled Europe as Nazism spread, Lorre experienced firsthand the fear, displacement, and loss that so many in his generation endured. Add to this his reported struggles with depression and occasional dependency issues, and you have a man whose moods and behaviors were often unpredictable. Colleagues recalled moments when Lorre could be intensely charismatic, funny, and charming, and then suddenly withdrawn or edgy, leaving co-stars guessing how he'll behave in the next scene. These personal differences played out subtly in their interactions. Bogart's desire for structure and reliability often clashed with Laurie's improvisational tendencies, but underlying that clash was an emotional tension rooted in their private lives. While Bogart needed consistency and control, Laurie's unpredictability reflected deeper fears and coping mechanisms, which he expressed through his acting and behavior. Their conflicting lifestyles, Bogart's disciplined professionalism versus Laurie's more fluid and eccentric approach, meant that even the simplest on-set decisions could become points of silent contention. Yet, these personal pressures also added a layer of authenticity to their work. Bogart's weariness, Laurie's nervous energy, and the underlying tension between them translated into moments that felt deeply human. It's ironic. The very struggles that might have driven them apart as individuals made their on-screen chemistry more compelling, giving audiences a sense of depth, realism, and intensity that few could replicate. By understanding their personal lives, we begin to see why their off-screen friction was almost inevitable, and Wyatt, paradoxically, helped create some of cinema's most enduring performances. Casablanca, released in 1942, is often hailed as one of Hollywood's greatest films. Its romance, intrigue, and moral complexity continue to captivate audiences, but few realize that the drama behind the scenes was almost as intense as the story on screen. At the heart of it was a dynamic, sometimes volatile, between Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre. Bogart had, by this time, become Hollywood's leading man. He carried himself with a quiet authority, commanding respect from both cast and crew. Directors often relied on him to maintain focus during chaotic shoots, especially on production as unpredictable as Casablanca. Lorre, however, brought a very different energy to the set. His eccentricities were legendary. Sudden improvisations, curious facial expressions, and a knack for unsettling timing that kept everyone alert. While this unpredictability could spark brilliance, it often tested Bogart's patience. Production stories from the set reveal fascinating glimpses into their interactions. For instance, during a pivotal scene at Rick's Cafe, Lorre insisted on experimenting with the timing and inflection of his lines, prompting Bogart to repeat his own lines multiple times until the rhythm felt just right. Crew members noted subtle eye rolls, terse comments, and moments of barely suppressed irritation. Yet, neither actor ever let this spill over into unprofessional behavior. Instead, they channeled it into their performances, creating an underlying tension that audiences could sense, even if they didn't understand why. Adding to the pressure was the chaotic nature of production itself. Scripts were rewritten constantly, dialogue shifted at the last minute, and unexpected changes could appear mid-scene. Bogart's steady, disciplined approach often served as a stabilizing force, while Lorre's improvisation created moments of unpredictability that sometimes elevated and sometimes complicated the shoot. Interestingly, historians and crew suggest that the friction between the two may have contributed to the film's signature intensity. Bogart's cool, controlled energy was amplified by Lorre's erratic unpredictability, making every interaction charged with nuance. Even small, seemingly trivial incidents were magnified by their personalities. Seating arrangements, lighting adjustments, or props placements sometimes sparked minor disputes, which would later translate into subtle character tension in the final cut. These behind-the-scenes dynamics reveal a fascinating paradox. Two actors who may have harbored personal annoyance for one another could produce moments of cinematic genius together. In retrospect, it's clear that Casablanca's magic was more than just a script or direction. It was a combination of impeccable talent, creative genius, and the unspoken tension between Bogart and Lorre. Their off-screen friction added layers to the characters, giving the film a depth and realism that has resonated for decades. It's a reminder that sometimes the best art emerges from a storm of conflict, both visible and invisible. By the early 1950s, Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre were veterans of Hollywood, yet their professional paths still intersected in surprising ways. Their final on-screen collaboration came in the 1953 film Beat the Devil, directed by John Huston, who had previously helmed them in The Maltese Falcon. Unlike their earlier noir classics, this film leaned heavily into satire and adventure, a project that demanded both timing and improvisation. On paper, it was a perfect stage for two seasoned actors, but behind the camera, it was a different story. Bogart approached the set with the seriousness that had defined his career. He had become a master of understatement, a man who commanded authority without raising his voice. Lorre, true to form, thrived on chaos. His improvisational style and eccentric energy clashed repeatedly with Bogart's desire for structure. Reports from crew members suggest that Bogart's patience was worn thin by Lorre's unpredictable antics. Scenes sometimes required multiple takes, simply because Lorre would shift his timing, tone, or even physical movements on the fly. The tension wasn't limited to technical matters. Personality differences and personal frustrations flared in subtle, sometimes humorous ways. Bogart's colleagues recalled moments of silent disapproval, tightened jawlines, brief glares, and carefully measured pauses in dialogue. while Laurie often responded with sly smiles or playful gestures, as if testing the limits of his co-star's tolerance. Some crew members even described a quiet game between them. Bogart would maintain a cool, controlled exterior, while Laurie introduced small disturbances, and both measured the other's reaction. Despite these challenges, the collaboration produced memorable results. The interplay between Bogart's calm, sardonic wit and Laurie's jittery, mischievous energy created a tension that perfectly matched the film's satirical tone. While audiences may have laughed at the surface humor, the underlying unease gave the film a subtle edge. In a way, the friction that made their interactions difficult off-screen also enhanced their performances, demonstrating the paradox of their professional relationship. Personal disdain and cinematic brilliance coexisting. After Beat the Devil, their careers diverged. Bogart continued to dominate as Hollywood's leading man until his untimely death in 1957, while Laurie returned to character roles, often embracing the eccentric persona that had defined his career. Though they never became close friends, there remained professional respect. Enough to collaborate when necessary, but not enough to bridge the personal gap between them. This final collaboration stands as a testament to the complexity of their relationship. It illustrates that while personal dislike can simmer, professionalism and talent can still produce extraordinary results. Their story is a reminder that in Hollywood, the line between conflict and creativity is often thinner than it appears. When we look back at the careers of Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre, it's tempting to focus solely on their unforgettable films. The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and Beat the Devil are landmarks of cinema, celebrated for their storytelling, acting, and enduring impact. Yet, the story behind the scenes reveals something equally compelling. Two brilliant actors whose personal friction shaped the magic that audiences still love today. Bogart and Laurie never became friends in the conventional sense. Bogart, with his disciplined professionalism and understated style, often found Laurie's eccentricities difficult to tolerate. Laurie, in turn, may have viewed Bogart's rigid demeanor as stifling or overbearing. Their personalities clashed repeatedly, yet the paradox of their relationship is that those very clashes amplified the art they created. Scenes crackle with tension not only because of the script, but because the actors brought genuine emotion, sometimes irritation, sometimes frustration, sometimes unspoken curiosity, into their performances. Beyond the professional realm, their story offers a glimpse into the human side of Hollywood. Bogart faced personal challenges, volatile relationships, the pressures of fame, and the expectations of leading man status. Laurie carried trauma from his early life in Europe, compounded by the difficulties of exile, personal struggles, and the pressures of maintaining a career in a foreign country. These personal realities inevitably spilled over into the workplace, influencing how they interacted, how they collaborated, and how their on-screen chemistry unfolded. Their legacy is multifaceted. On one hand, they demonstrate that incredible art can emerge even from relationships strained by personality clashes and mutual annoyance. On the other, they remind us that Hollywood brilliance often comes with hidden costs, stress, tension, and complicated human dynamics behind the curtain. For film historians, actors, and audiences, the story of Bogart and Laurie is a lesson in the delicate balance between talent, temperament, and collaboration. Perhaps most intriguing is how their tension contributed to timeless performances. Bogart's cool, calculated delivery was highlighted by Laurie's jittery, unpredictable energy. Laurie's quirks gained extra dimension because of Bogart's straight-man grounding. Together, even without friendship or warmth, they produced moments of cinematic brilliance that continue to captivate audiences nearly a century later. Ultimately, their relationship tells us that human complexity doesn't hinder creativity. It can enhance it. Conflict, when channeled professionally, becomes fuel for art. The story of Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre is more than a tale of rivalry. It's a reminder that behind every iconic performance lies a mix of talent, tension, and the unpredictable forces of human personality. What do you think? Did their friction make their performances better, or did it almost ruin the magic? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Hollywood stories.